The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hi, everybody.
And it's Friday, the end of another long week. Congratulations, everybody. We made it.
We did.
And what does that mean here at Second Breakfast, Phil?
Let me think if I could figure out what a Friday meant if only I had mailbag.
Good. Fantastic. And we're going a little old school. We instead of doing two questions, as has become our wont, we're doing three. But we love all three of them, and there's a reason we're sort of supersizing it, which we will tell you about later.
Oh, we're keeping it a secret?
Not really.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
I can cut across country easy enough. I
think there should be just a whole. I think we should just, for a whole episode, Andy, just quote movie quotes that have to sound really intense, but just say it normal. Like instead of like keep it secret, keep it safe. So like keep it secret, keep it safe.
Right.
I mean, the greatest example of that, of course, is put the lotion in the basket.
That's right. And if we expand it to include television shows, we could be like, who are you working for? Who are you working for?
That would be good. Yeah, it would be great if Jack Bauer got super nuanced that way. Right. I would love that.
I got to be honest. A lot of times I would say the majority of the time I want nuance in my characters. I don't want nuance in Jack Bauer. I just don't. I want him to be a blunt instrument.
Right. The perfect representation of American justice.
Indeed.
Just a blunt force trauma.
Right. Killing an ant with a hammer. Yes.
Sometimes you got to electrocute a guy with a lamp cord, just because sometimes you got to do that.
Sometimes you got to. We will. Let's dive in. I love our questions this week, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
Them. So first comes from our friend in China, Evan Weinberg. Hello, Evan.
He's still in China?
Well, actually, he might be in. Actually, right now he's in Spain, but it's on vacation from China.
Does he move back to the United States of America at some point in his life?
You'll have to ask him that. If I had to guess, my answer to that is no, or at least not in the near future. Their plans do not include the U.S. in the near future.
Okay. Confused me. I'm confused.
Sure. Stay with your own kind, Evan.
It's not what I meant. I just love America so much.
I think it is.
Yeah, it's true. It probably is.
So Evan pops up occasionally to ask us questions about science and math, which makes me feel dumb because he is not.
That's why I don't answer these questions. I just sit here mute.
Nice. So here we go. First, he very briefly, and I say very briefly because nothing else about this question is brief at all. Settle in, folks. It's a long one. He very briefly talks about how we recently talked about WALL-E and the we always talk about WALL-E, but we recently talked about the moments in the opening montage. We had an entire podcast on the opening montage, and how the parts that made us cry was one of that was one of the things we talked about. And he said we didn't mention the thing that got him, and I think we almost did, but I think he's right. I don't think we quite mentioned it. The moment that gets him is at the end of the scrapbook where she thanks him for the adventures and tells him to go have some. And I'm gonna cry again. So I'm not even gonna finish that. Evan, you're right. That gets me too. Yes, of course.
I can't cry, Evan, right now because I'm all out of tears. But yeah,
that's right.
Because I sat up last night thinking about that and weeping, so I don't have anything left in me.
Nice. So here we go from Evan. My question is again about science in movies. I think there's a bigger tolerance for science to serve as a deus ex machina for moving a plot forward that wouldn't be tolerated in other contexts. Someone can say a movie doesn't work because its driving presence requires that person A do X, when this is actually completely unbelievable in reality. It's a lot easier to say that because of science. X happens or X is possible, and then build a movie about it. I don't actually care that a movie gets physicists to consult on a movie to help with the parts that are being sold as being real science. I don't think that most people care that much. I don't care because I doubt the scriptwriters really changed that much of the original content. based on the input of professional scientists. Do you think it matters when directors, producers, scriptwriters make an effort to be realistic? Where is the line between believability and plausibility? As in, where's the difference between this could happen in the universe of the movie and this could happen in my universe?
Right.
And which movies do you think do this well? Looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Wow.
Right?
I have so many thoughts.
Right?
Do you want me to start or do you want to start?
Up to you, big dog.
Well, my problem here is that I'm religious, so I don't believe in science. So the earth is flat as far as because I said so, and the sun moves from right to left and all the rest. Here's the reality. I really am terrible at science. I have some friends. I have a friend from seminary. She and I started together, and she was like a molecular biology major in college before going to seminary. So, and somehow she believes in Jesus too. So it all works out. But I don't know a thing, Andy. Like I am like. So whenever I find out that things don't, so I guess here's my gauge. If even I realize that scientifically that's ridiculous, we've got some explaining to do.
Fair.
Okay, but. I don't mind when science is used, but I think as someone who doesn't like when I see things I know a lot about represented poorly, I just feel like I would be annoyed if it wasn't done right. I would prefer to think that if something had a scientific, if it's meant, and I like that Evan made this differentiation between being portrayed as the real world or being portrayed as the world of the film.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I appreciate that. I would say, to me, Jurassic Park is an example of science as they're trying to portray it as the real world.
Yes.
And so I'd like to know on any level that that's possible. Not that they make dinosaurs, but the idea of what they do sounds so fascinating to me. Conversely, Iron Man. I have a hard time. If Iron Man is remotely supposed to be this world, then we're in Fantasyland. Because basically, the level of computer technology that exists for Tony Stark and Tony Stark alone, and the way they explain it is, he's a genius. That's it. He's created complete and utterly renewable energy, which, by the way, somehow hasn't magically transformed the entire world.
Well, that's actually
kind
part
of
of
a
the
magic
thing,
land.
right? Like, I mean, that's what he's doing at the beginning of the Avengers, right? Like, he sets up Stark Tower to be... And yet,
it's still not like... I don't know.
Man,
yes, you're right.
I agree
but
with
it's
you.
like...
I'm a conservationist as well. I agree with you.
So I'd like... I guess what I'm saying is... Or anything with computers, because computers use science and math. And basically the way that they do. And they'll just be like... Well, the internet says, or computers do this, and you're like, is that true?
War games. Yeah. Where it starts World War III with a modem that you actually put. Remember those? You put the phone down on the modem.
Oh yeah, of course. Pretty much modem. It's like '80s robot from the Muppet movie, right? From the Muppets. I will just use my modem to download the information. So I love the way he says modem. I can't say modem anymore. It's like modem. Here's the deal. Like, shockingly, like me, I want everything to be as close to truth as possible. I want every movie that uses science in its plot to have at least 3 scientists working on as consultants, and I want everything they put forward to be scientifically sound, unless the movie is in a different world, like a different multiverse or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I'm a stickler.
Sure. My response to my first response to that, specifically about Iron Man, Roger Ebert had some amazing quotes in his various reviews, and they didn't stop him from enjoying the movies. But he was like, "Look, I don't care how amazing Tony Stark's technology is. He's still bouncing around inside that suit. If he were to accelerate and then decelerate the way he does, he would be pudding inside of that suit.
Unless that suit is made of some sort of shock absorber that no one has ever experienced before.
And no one talks about in any of the movies. Right. Exactly. So I thought that was funny. You will be, shockingly, I basically disagree with you, although not as much as you might think.
What?
I know. You're the stickler for realism, and I'm not, or truth in advertising, I should say.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. What I absolutely agree with is one of the first things you said, which is if I can tell that it's wrong, we gotta talk. But the fact is, I'm a smart guy, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm an idiot, right? So you know what I mean?
I'm totally with you.
Yes.
I'm totally with you.
Yes.
The reality is, I can't tell. So I'm saying on principle that I want scientists and I want all the movies to be scientifically accurate on principle. But why do I want that? To safeguard against my own idiocy, right? Because I actually think you can make dinosaurs from pulling mosquitoes from amber. So why not?
Well, and the only place I disagree with you is if I find out I'm wrong later. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's not like if I think I'm right, one of my kids will start pursuing the career of making dinosaurs out of mosquitoes and amber.
It's true.
I mean, God, I hope not.
Wait, you mean that didn't work? That didn't work out for that guy? Is that what you're?
I don't think it did. I think he's collecting unemployment checks. So from no one, because that doesn't exist.
From nobody. He's still a billionaire. He's just a billionaire all by himself and sad.
That's right. I mean, the two movies, or it used to be one and now it's two. They're made by the same guy that I keep coming back to as sort of the perfect representations of what I'd like to see. Okay, is a guy named Shane Carruth who made the time travel movie Primer and recently made the there's really no other way to describe it other than genetic manipulation movie Upstream Color. Okay. To my knowledge, time travel is not possible.
What?
To my knowledge, the amount of genetic manipulation and other things that I can't quite honestly put a name on in Upstream Color, they are not possible either. Sure. But within the world of the movie, I defy you to find a hole. There is a reason that this guy took 7 years to make his next movie, and it's not only because it took him a while to find funding. It is also because everything is as airtight as it is possible to be. I guess it's the difference between, I guess it's also, to use another analogy, it's the difference between two movies that I love, Tim Burton's Batman and Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. You know what I mean?
Say more.
Well, Tim Burton's Batman, he isn't, I don't think once in that movie does he do something that is physically impossible for a human being to do.
Right?
But it doesn't spend a lot of time worrying about being realistic.
Nope. It's a comic book.
Whereas Batman Begins gives you a reason, functionally, it gives you a reason for the ears on the costume. Because that's where he puts the radio, the listening device.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So
good.
So in addition to the fact that the overall look has to be like a bat, but still, like he makes Bruce Wayne the kind of person that sees the ears on the bat costume and thinks, I need to make a reason for that. Right. So I think
you've pointed something out for me that I think is really helpful, Andy, and that is that I want to differentiate again between. Or I just want to make another differentiation. I don't want to differentiate again. I want to make another differentiation here that I hadn't made, which is the difference between science fiction, really, like as the setup or world, and then what Evan says as science as the Deus Ex Machina, meaning the machine of the gods that comes in and saves, that saves the day. You're giving examples to me of these are worlds that are set up wherein time travel is possible.
Yes.
This is a world set up wherein Jack Napier can fall into a vat of chemicals and come out bleached white and with green hair. You know what I mean? That's the world that these are the worlds in which, and that's different from like, oh, we'll just get science to do this for us. And I'm trying to think of an example of a movie that does that.
I can't either, which is, I got one.
Go ahead.
Have you seen the movie The Core?
No.
Do you remember this movie?
No. Which one is this?
It's got an unbelievable
Is it a horror
cast.
movie?
No, it's got an unbelievable cast. It's got Hilary Swank, Stanley Tucci. I want to say Aaron Eckhart is in it. And here is the premise. The Earth is going to be destroyed, not unlike the movie 2012. The Earth is going to be destroyed because of things that are happening in the core of the planet. So they build a gigantic, basically, drill ship.
Okay.
To unload like a super megaton payload to jumpstart the core again like it's a heart, and then drill their way out again.
So not all that different from Armageddon, actually, in its premise.
No, because they're not trying to blow up the Earth. They are trying to blow up that comet.
But I'm saying either way, like Armageddon is ridiculous as well. Like let's send a bunch of offshore drillmen to drill a hole into an asteroid that's flying through space.
Yes. Even more ridiculous, however, I could be wrong. I have only seen this movie once.
Is jump starting the Earth's heart?
Well, right. But even more ridiculous
with a nuclear bomb.
They were sending astronauts with offshore drillers to do the things that astronauts and offshore drillers do, right?
Okay.
This was, let's send a bunch of scientists in a big drill to make something blow up.
Wow.
Yes. I could be wrong about that because I don't want to remember the movie. But I don't believe there were any, shall we say, demolition experts. Or if there were, it was mostly about the scientists.
There you go. I would like Evan, when he sees this, to respond Facebook comments and other people too about movies specifically where science is used as Deus Ex Machina or science is used as the savior. Because I'm not sure of them off the top of my head. The ones I keep coming up with are science as... I mean, although I think Iron Man gets really close. I mean, it's a lot of sort of... I mean, the whole end of the Avengers is based on some science that I don't... I mean... Okay, but in the
yes,
but it's just like, oh, we'll just create a wormhole and then throw a nuclear weapon into the wormhole because that'll work. But then he'll the whole. It's just come on. At least the only thing that made me happy about all this was that finally, when Iron Man flies not even into the wormhole, but far enough into the wormhole,
right?
He finally loses a signal from Jarvis. Like, not right away, by the way, mind you. Like, he has to go in there like a couple miles. So I can't, just to be clear, I can't get a cell phone signal in my house, okay? In the house in which I live, in the most populous part of the most populous state in the Union. But Iron Man can go a mile into another dimension before he loses contact with Jarvis. Offensive to me.
Yeah,
offensive.
He is.
But at least he lost a signal. That's what made me happy.
He is through the wormhole when Jarvis asks him... I think he's through the wormhole when Jarvis asks him, do you want to call Miss Potts?
It's just... And he still gets kind of a signal. Like, it's a little still
he
like...
He gets her, and then he loses that signal as well.
I honestly lose my signal standing in one spot. Nice. And he can drive into a wormhole. So science is weird. There's a movie, I want to say one last thing, which is that I think an example of what science... even if it's totally inaccurate science, can do when it's used as the premise is something like the movie Splice.
Right.
Which is a really messed up movie, by the way.
Really messed up movie.
But it does something it uses some really shady science, and even some shady science ethics. But it does so to set up a premise that's basically mythological, asking questions about motherhood, fatherhood, and Frankenstein type questions.
Yes. That's why I think that science fiction is at its best. Like we talked about, we had a podcast a while back on magical realism, where everything is normal except for one thing. That is and what science fiction does is that one thing is science or technology based, and traditionally, it wasn't about robots transforming into cars and punching things. It was we use that one thing to examine something about morality. So I think that's. That's actually, it's interesting that this question sort of taps into why I've always loved science fiction, because of that reason. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
Evan, thank you. Great question. Yep. Love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Great.
Let's move on. What's next?
A question from my brother Matt.
Hello, Matt.
Hello, Matt. I'm not sure how much Matt actually pays attention to our podcast. He'll listen every once in a while, and then he'll listen to like 5 minutes and then offer up like, you guys are really weird and snobby. He actually, I put something on Facebook the other day, and then he commented on my post. I don't know if you saw this. He said, "Are you considered normal on the planet that you're from?" Or back on your planet. Are you considered normal back on your planet?
Nice.
And I was like, nope, I'm weird there too.
Nice.
All right.
Weird and snobby. Matt, guilty.
We were having a conversation. You remember the other day when we started talking about singers who have gotten into acting? That was based on a conversation my brother Matt and I had about Dwight Yoakam and Tim McGraw. And so we were talking about that, and he was talking about how mean Tim McGraw was in Friday Night Lights, and I was talking about how mean Dwight Yoakam was in Sling Blade. And my brother asked the question, so who has played the meanest man ever portrayed? And I said, between the two or ever? You know, like between Dwight Yoakam and Tim McGraw or just ever? And he said ever. And I was like, now that's a mailbag question if ever there was one. Amen. Who has played the meanest man ever portrayed? And so Andy, who give me some of your thoughts on this one.
I have some thoughts. Two of my answers. I have five, I think.
Okay.
5 or 6. Two of them are not men.
Wow.
I had some fun with this.
You're a sexist jerk.
It's true. Again, guilty. Again. So I'll get there. I had a lot of fun with what I considered evil. And this is clearly one of these questions that if you asked me this again in an hour, I would have a different answer. An entire slew of different answers. But here's what I came up with. Angel Eyes, the bad from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Nice.
Which I didn't even think about until now, but tethered to that one, I forget his character's name. Henry Fonda in Once Upon a Time in the West.
Well done, you.
Man, is he evil. And he's especially evil because you're used to seeing him be literally the most good, and I say that deliberately instead of best. He is the most good person, maybe in movie history. It's either him or Jimmy Stewart, right?
Or Gregory Peck, right?
Yes.
Single-handedly for one movie.
Yes.
Although I have to say Gregory Peck's complete and utter inability to grasp anything close to reality or reason in The Omen, like almost completely counteracts Atticus Finch. Like it almost, not for meanness, but just for like goodness, so to speak.
True, but then he hits you with the left cross of the journalist in Roman Holiday. So
I've never seen Roman Holiday.
You will really like it when you do.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll see if we'll hug.
Fantastic. The captain from Cool Hand Luke, the guy who's in charge of the prison. That's right. Here was my single criterion for is this person evil enough for this list. When I say his name, if I go ugh, he's evil enough for this list, right?
Wow, I like it.
Yeah. The one horror movie entry, we could debate about this in a minute, but the one horror movie entry on my list, Freddy Krueger. He is, I think, the most evil of sort of the horror icons in my mind.
Nice.
The childhood movie edition, these are movies that I first experienced as a child, and so they not for nothing, these are all authority figures. Prince Humperdinck.
Nice.
And the principal/deans from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Breakfast Club.
Oh, I don't agree with you at all on Ferris Bueller, but I totally agree with you on The Breakfast Club.
Nice.
That guy is a terrible person.
He's a terrible person.
He's everything I hate about people.
Agreed. It just packaged in one.
Including that he's white. I can't stand white people.
It's true. In one Caucasian meat sack. Okay. And then the two females on my list. Annie Wilkes from Misery.
Wow.
Right. And this is my curveball that I'm really pleased with. Lena Lamont from Singin' in the Rain.
Well done. Everything she does is terrible and bad.
Everything.
You're right.
It is all I can do, especially since I've seen the movie so many times now. It really is all I can do to not spend every moment she's on screen just like yelling at her that she is an awful person. Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think the only reason that I wouldn't think of her is that no one ever takes her seriously, even ever. Like no one ever Yeah, but I mean, she ruins everything. Her scheme comes close to working. I know. Right? I know. You know. I mean, I agree. No. I agree with you. I agree with you. But
So I answered this question a little differently than you.
I have. Is this my shock face? Am I wearing my shock face right
I
now?
know. And the way I answered it differently than you should also not shock you, which is that I took it as literally as possible.
Okay.
So instead of thinking about most evil, I thought about meanest.
Oh, nice.
Which is
okay.
Which is the word my brother used, but I think if I said you mean evil, I think I think everyone you listed makes perfect sense.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
But there's something utterly not mean about Annie Wilkes in Misery. There's something evil about her.
That's very well said. Cock-a-doodie car.
Okay. Unless she actually was the one who caused the accident in the first place, which some people suggested.
Interesting.
That she was following him and stalking him and all that. Anyways, but that's all.
She was definitely
that's what we
doing
call
that.
apocryphal.
She was definitely following him and stalking him, but it's. I wonder if she actually caused the accident.
It's called apocryphal. Yeah. Okay. So
Nice. Well done.
so okay. Here's the deal. For me, number one, Gary Oldman as Stansfield in The Professional or Leon.
Literally the last person I cut from the list. I was like, I just can't.
I don't know
so
why
many
you cut
names.
him. He kills children. Like he shoots people. I mean, he's just as evil as it gets.
I mean, because I had Freddy Krueger doing that already, but in my list. But
yeah,
yes, you're right.
I get. Yeah.
I can't quibble.
Right. It's hard for me with Freddy Krueger because he's a monster by definition. So it's like,
right, but he was
obviously a
monster
bad guy when he was alive.
That's right.
But he was a pedophile when he was alive.
And killer, yes.
Oh, did he kill them as well?
Yes.
So that's bad. We didn't really get to see him that way. We see him
You're
as the
right.
monstrous version. So that's fine.
right.
But I hear you. I mean, but Gary Oldman as Stansfield the cop in Leon or The Professional is, and I think what I love about it is, as evil as he is, the thing that I love about that there's a lot of things I love about that movie. It is basically a perfect movie and has almost single-handedly propelled Luc Besson's career to the point where he does whatever he wants, even if it's bad, and has not. Maybe you could argue Fifth Element, but really he hasn't done anything as good as The Professional in 20 years.
I would agree.
And everyone's like, Luc Besson's making something. That's
Totally.
how good The Professional is.
Yes.
But anyways, what I love about that movie is it's another movie where there could be a lot of unrealistic stuff, but it just feels realistic. It just feels... That character is Gary Oldman's character is completely and utterly off the wall and feels completely and utterly real.
Yes. Yes.
I think that you probably have to mention Joe Pesci as Nicky Santoro in Casino.
Nice. Well done.
Different than his character in Goodfellas, because his character in Goodfellas isn't particularly mean. He's just angry and has a Napoleonic complex, right?
Yep.
And is crazy. Mm-hmm. But Nicky Santoro, there's a level to him that's just, there's a meanness to it. There's a self-entitled meanness to him that is amazing. And then I know this is like shooting fish in a barrel. This is like the easiest call in the world. But I mean, Ralph Fiennes' character in Schindler's List.
Oh, I mean, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I know that's obvious, but this is the deal. We're talking, my brother's actual suggestion is really good. He's like Lex Luthor. Because, like, Lex Luthor will destroy the whole world if it means he can make some money.
Right.
Like, and although people hated Superman Returns, I mean, Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor basically is like, well, I'm going to destroy half the world so that I own really good property.
Right.
Well,
that's fair.
Well, that's not. And also just the way that he treats his assistant, especially in the first Superman.
Oh yeah.
The way that he treats his assistants is like, it's unfortunate.
It's not. He is not a boss you want to work for. It's true. Yeah.
I have been told when we were in college that the most evil character in the history of theater was Iago from Othello because he never has a reason for doing what he does. It doesn't actually say he's really actually officially jealous of Othello or would prefer to be with Desdemona himself. He just makes the decision to do something evil and does it.
Interesting.
That being said, I've never gone and seen a phenomenal portrayal of Othello, and I've never seen the movie version, so I don't know if Kenneth Branagh's Iago is amazingly, perfectly mean and evil or not. But I'm interested. I just wanted to put that out there as a possibility. And this is a TV show. but Gerald McRaney plays a guy named Hurst on Deadwood. And Andy, it's not just the most evil, it's the meanest thing you'll ever see. I mean, it is. Wow. It will change the way you think about Major Dad single-handedly.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it is a tour de force performance. TV does such a good job of showing mean people because they can show them over longer periods of time, and so they actually give it's like the more you know someone, the more they can get away with.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So anyway, so I think those are my answers. I mean, I know this is also a total stock answer, but you brought up the principles from Ferris Bueller and Breakfast Club, and like the Mean Girls from Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Because I know that it's called Mean Girls, but really, like, that's the kind of thing that could give a girl an eating disorder or drive her to suicide.
Yes.
Like, the way that they talk is like that level, and it's just like, it hurts.
You know what that leads me to?
Please.
Any of the Heathers from Heathers.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
which was the real. Yeah, I haven't seen it in so long. I need to watch that yesterday.
You know that I love Mean Girls, but Heathers is wicked and black on a level that Mean Girls doesn't touch.
Hey,
can
I ask you?
Yes.
No, you go.
Just real quick, just because this is the only character that I can, I guess, aside from the Mean Girls, that I can actually remember being called mean in a movie, J.T. Walsh in Good Morning Vietnam.
Oh wow!
Right? Because at the end, it's like I thought you were
really good.
I thought you were just hard and strict, but it turns out you're just mean when he gets transferred to Guam.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I got. Ask me your question.
What's the meanest character you've ever actually enjoyed watching? Because you pointed out that the people you named, when you think about them, you go like, ugh. Like, are there mean characters that you even remotely root for?
Root for?
I don't know. Like, I was sad when Tommy in Goodfellas, Joe Pesci's character, died.
It's fair.
Like, sad. I was like, oh, and he was a mean person. I mean, he was a bad guy, you know?
Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I can't answer that at the moment. That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
That's fine.
But yeah.
I'm trying to think if I have an answer for that too. I just thought it would, because our meanness, a lot of times, it part of the question is it brings something. I mean, and by the way, I would say the guy that I would actually put Dwight Yoakam as the boyfriend in Sling Blade on the list.
Sure. Because
what he does, if you haven't seen Sling Blade, Dwight Yoakam plays the boyfriend of this woman who's got a son, and they live out in, I think, Arkansas in the backwoods somewhere, and he is a drunk, and he is abusive or threatens with abuse, and he's just mean. But the hardest part about it is you get this sense that his existence seems unescapable to the kid into the mom.
Yes.
That he's just he's a malevolent presence, and he's not going anywhere, and there's danger in his existence.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Sling Blade, see Sling Blade.
It's so good. It is. I haven't seen it in years.
It's not the only great performance by Billy Bob Thornton, but even if it were, it would mean that you'd have to pay attention to Billy Bob Thornton for the rest of his life.
Yes. Totally.
And it might be the only movie he directed. No, I think he did one other movie. But
I don't know.
It's a masterful film, and anyway, that. Okay.
All right, shall we move on?
Good question, Matt. I like this question.
Yes.
I feel honestly like, and no disrespect to you or to me, I feel like we didn't even do justice to that question. I feel like we could have sat here for another 45 minutes just talking about evil guys.
That's true.
Angela Lansbury in The Manchurian Candidate.
Sure.
Okay, we're done. We'll stop. We'll just stop.
Okay. Question number 3.
Gaston in Beauty and the Beast?
What?
He's just mean.
I had to stop myself from including everything in Disney, right?
I know.
Because
yeah. That's fair.
You're right, but come on. You're right.
Even
in bad Disney movies, for the most part, the villains are pretty evil. You know?
It's true.
You know?
You're right. Okay.
All right. Moving on. Question number 3. from new friend of the podcast, Adam Vibert. Hello, Adam.
Welcome to Second Breakfast Nation, Adam.
Yes, Adam comes to us via his enjoyment of our Project Melway series, which just goes to show you he has excellent taste. And
excellent.
What the heck are the rest of you doing with your lives? Okay.
It's true.
I have a question that kind of pertains to the podcast you did about flops. We did a podcast about flops a little bit ago.
Flops.
It's true. I understand that Blade Runner was a box office and critical disappointment when it came out, and yet I think it has become more than just a cult classic. I think it is a definitive sci-fi classic. I also love John Carter from a couple years ago, but I don't see anything like that happening with it, mainly because it isn't near the level of Blade Runner. So my question is, could this happen in today's movie climate, where when something is panned, it is rarely heard from again, or it becomes a cult classic? And also, how do you suppose, Blade Runner was a flop with Harrison Ford in the midst of Star Wars and Raiders, and Ridley Scott coming off Alien? That's a really good question. And B, how did Blade Runner endure as well as it has and gain the status of classic?
Wow, that's a deep... What's funny is he is new to our podcast, so he doesn't know how much we've talked about Blade Runner in the past. And he has no idea how little I care for Blade Runner.
So let's preface this, Adam. Phil doesn't really like Blade Runner. I like it fine. I even really like it. I don't love it to the point. It's not one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time. I concede that it's that's a well-made movie, but it's never going to rise to the level of Star Wars for me or anything like that. And I do think Harrison Ford is great in it. I think it's one of his best performances. I
have owned Blade Runner on VHS and DVD, and both of them were given to me by someone else.
Awesome.
Which is not true about any other movie. I can't say that about anything else. But I will say this: I've seen Blade Runner now 4 times.
Okay.
And I don't ever need to see it again. Now that being said, I don't dislike the movie. I want to be clear.
Okay.
I don't at all, and I think it does a lot of things well. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those movies, and I think you are absolutely right, Adam, to call it a classic. It belongs in the category, even if I don't like it that much. It belongs. Because to me, classic isn't actually about whether or not I like a movie. Believe it or not, it should be that should be the criteria, but it's not. But classic is based on, I think, how it has impacted the culture of cinema, and the reality is Blade Runner has had a huge impact.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I think but my overall complaint about the movie is very simple, which is that it is a 2-hour movie basically about a mood. What it does right is create a mood. Mm-hmm. And it's a legitimately weird dystopian... I mean, it portrays dystopia in a way that feels real.
Yes.
And feels relatable and plausible. I just don't care that much.
Sure.
But that's the idea. So I think it was one of the... I don't know. I mean, why was it a big deal? Why did that movie end up becoming a classic would be the first question, I guess, Andy.
Well, so I want to go through because Adam actually asked a lot of questions in this paragraph, and they're all good.
Yeah, but Adam, one question next time, buddy. I'm just kidding.
Adam, I'm the one who chooses the questions. Phil is a figurehead, so
it's true.
Ask whatever you
it's
want.
True.
So first off, I actually had the exact same feeling about John Carter that you do. I really, really liked it. I own it.
And he loved John Carter.
I really did. I mean, I loved it not in the way that I love Star Wars, but I really think they did a nice job with it. And I agree with you. I don't see anything like that happening. I think there are a couple things going on here. One, I think it's low-hanging fruit. It's the easy call to say, oh, we live in the internet generation, the YouTube generation, where everyone tears everything down, so you're not going to see cult classics and blah, blah, blah. And to whatever extent that's true, fine, all right? I mean, the fanboys got a hold of John Carter months before it was released. Months.
Yep.
And also, literally, I think the worst marketed movie of my lifetime. I mean, It is absolutely absurd. And I mean absurd in the truest sense of the word, the amount of marketing that movie got compared to the amount of marketing The Lone Ranger got. I mean,
it's very well said.
I mean, Disney.
Very
what
well
does that
said.
matter with you?
Very well said. Except, The Lone Ranger was created by the guy who's created one of the most profitable series in Disney history.
And
so
right.
maybe the most profitable series in Disney history. So
that's
I
fine.
get it.
That's fine. I'm not. That's more of a complaint. That's still more of a complaint about John Carter, because you know what? The director was coming from Pixar.
Right.
They had by the guy who wrote Tarzan. They had the story that spawned Star Wars. Like, there were so many ways they could have marketed it, and
I feel like everything. What's amazing to me is that everything you just said is why I think they even allowed him to make the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, then didn't market those points.
Yes.
Like, they showed no confidence in what you loved. I thought was a fine movie. That was good. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
But it's definitely better than a lot of movies that I've seen that got as you said, way more play from those studios. Absolutely true.
But I think so. I think it's easy enough to say that's what's happened now with John Carter. But I think the more interesting part of your question is about Blade Runner, and that is, not only was it something new. I mean, Phil, I really like what you said. Like, it showed dystopia in a way that felt real, and in a way that we really hadn't seen before. I mean, right at the beginning of science fiction, you have Metropolis. Back in the 30s. Back in the 30s, you have Metropolis, and that showed it. But it was back in the 30s. It was a silent film. And you had, I guess, maybe Soylent Green, maybe, and that was well
Soylent Green is people.
Spoiler. Yeah. So. That's
the way I found out about that movie before I'd even heard of it. So
fair.
I have made it a point to spoil it for everyone else.
Amen. And I mean, that's not a bad movie, and it creates the world well. But when I think dystopian science fiction, the first movie that comes to mind, even if I like other movies better, and I'm not saying I do, just off the top of my head, even if I like other movies more or have seen them more recently, the first movie I think of is Blade Runner. But I think it's even more than that. What you're talking about, you mention a lot of geek movies: Alien, Raiders, Star Wars, Blade Runner. It came out at the beginning, at the birth of geek culture, right? Star Wars created it, but then but it also fostered the environment, So,
and Star Wars is so much lighter and airier than,
right.
Blade Runner is suffocating, and that's okay. It's trying to be.
Right, but I think that works in its favor in terms of becoming a cult classic. It's like,
sure, but it doesn't work in its favor in terms of becoming a hit. That's what I meant by that.
No. That's precisely right. I totally agree.
Like, why isn't this a hit? Because they took the guy who was the gunslinging rogue from Star Wars and turned him into like a weird haircut, like sallow, frustrated, like depressing person in a depressing land.
Yes.
In a movie that was intentionally slow paced.
Yes.
So again, I'm actually fine with all those things.
Right.
But you can see why it wasn't a success.
Totally. And it also came about right around the time that VCRs were coming out. So it could become a cult classic because people could watch it at home and dissect it at home and become, to use the term, which sometimes I love and sometimes I hate, fanboys. And by that,
I hate it always, but that's fine.
Well, what I mean by that in this case is evangelists for it. They weren't just people loving it. They were people loving it and telling their friends. And then their friends, even if it was a year and a half, 3 years after the movie came out in theaters, people could still watch it and sort of discover it, And because it was so different, it wasn't different at all. If you take it, if you look at it as an adaptation of the Philip K. Dick story, dystopian science fiction had been around for decades at that point. But in terms of movies, it was kind of the first. It was one of the first, and so it was new. There were new ways to experience it, and it was different. And so and I think and it was different. It was different in the story it told. It was different in the way it presented. I love what you just said about Harrison Ford. It was different. It was Harrison Ford not playing Han Solo or Indiana Jones, which, let's be honest, I love both of his performances in those movies. Those characters are not a million miles away from each other. You know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Deckard is.
Yeah.
And yet what you have is Ridley Scott, as you say, Adam, coming off Alien, building that same sort of world, so at least something was familiar, and it was something that was clearly popular because Alien spawned a zillion things, you know?
But Alien is also something that, even though it was popular, it has grown in estimation over time.
Also true. Agreed. Nope. That is.
And that's just because it's lasted. Because what we find out, one of the reasons it's become a cult classic is because these are the movies that the people who are making movies today were influenced by growing up.
Yes.
And so when it comes to John Carter, so I want to say two things. One is about John Carter, and the other is about, are there going to be cult classics today? About John Carter, I don't think in the end it is as good as Alien, or, which I love, by the way, or Blade Runner.
Yep.
One of the reasons that it's not going to become a cult classic is because I don't think it's groundbreaking cinema. It's a well-made movie.
Yeah.
But it's not groundbreaking.
Agreed.
And so that's just going to be the reality no matter what we do. There was nothing that you saw in John Carter that you were like, I have never seen that before.
Right.
And in Blade Runner there was. And that's just part of the deal. Mm-hmm. Even though if right now Blade Runner was on and John Carter was on right this moment, I would watch John Carter. Unquestionable. Sure. Okay, but here's the thing I want to say about classics, about cult films. Of course they're going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And the internet culture can't change that because, and it might even help it, because look at movies like, the idea that there wouldn't be any cult classics now is that everyone knows everything about a movie when it first comes out. But the reality is the only people that pay attention to that stuff are people like us.
Yeah.
And
yes.
The cult classic is the thing that goes beyond people like us.
Yep.
So, and the two examples that I will give, one is the one we talked about a week ago, Office Space.
Yeah.
Office Space is a movie that was loved by Mike Judge geeks. But you know who loves Office Space now? Everybody. Everybody loves it, right? People who you don't necessarily relate to on a movie level love Office Space.
Mm-hmm.
I have loved the Coen brothers forever. The people who don't care about the Coen brothers or know who they are love The Big Lebowski. Big Lebowski is a movie that has a following that has nothing to do with the fact that it's a Coen brothers movie. Mm-hmm. And so even if I think Fargo's a better movie, even if I think Raising Arizona is a funnier movie, even if I think, Miller's Crossing is a more quotable movie, maybe I don't think that, but I do think it's really quotable and fantastic. The reason Miller's Crossing isn't that quotable really is only because I would quote it and people wouldn't know I'm quoting it. And the thing about Lebowski is you're quoting something and everybody knows what you're talking about.
That's right.
It's shorthand. So for something to become a cult classic doesn't mean that we people on the internet who talk about movies all the time will talk it up. What it means is that it surpasses us. And I think that's completely possible. I think that'll totally keep happening. I've given you two examples. No, they're both over 10 years old, but I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I think also, as small as the world has gotten with the internet and fast communication, intercontinental communication, movies from abroad coming to America will always feel like a cult classic. For example, Shaun of the Dead. I mean, I talk about it all the time, and everyone I know talks about it all the time, but the general population of the world does not talk about it all the time. It's not the largest grossing zombie movie of all time. It just isn't,
Sure.
Although I think it is one of the best,
It might be the best.
It might be the best. Another horror movie that I like more than Phil likes, Attack the Block.
Yeah. So now, so I was talking about cult movies as movies that have that started, well, I guess, you're being more correct, because I was talking about movies that had sort of transcended.
No, I don't think
transcended our culture, our personal little movie geek culture.
Right, but I mean.
But you're talking about movies that have stayed within that, and that makes sense too.
I guess, but I mean, I would also consider Rocky Horror Picture Show a cult classic, or at least a cult movie, and that's not the same genre, and that's not stayed within anything. But also you have, but also, I mean, I don't have to look to England. I can look the other way. I mean, think about Asian movies like Infernal Affairs or The Raid. The Raid actually made a dent in the box office over here,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
or from a few years ago, the Ong Bak, the guy who kneed everyone to death, which was just.
Yep. Sometimes you have to knee everyone to death.
I mean, you're right. So I think it will keep happening, Adam. I think it will be different. I think like the process by which one gains sort of a grassroots groundswell of support might be altered a little bit, but I think it'll keep happening. And you know what? Thank goodness, because I like those movies.
I would like to see this happen with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Me too.
Because the thing about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is that, I mean, it was my favorite movie of that year. Mm-hmm. I know it was one of your favorites.
Oh yeah.
And it just felt like it was going to be a cult classic to me, and I was like, everyone's going to love this movie. But I'm not sure that it has had that impact. And my only hope, and when I showed it to high school kids for a class, because that's the kind of crazy teacher I was. Mm-hmm. And some of them really loved it, but some of them were like, oh, that was cool. I mean, no one hated it. But I was confused. I was like, this should be, who is this movie for? Is it literally that Edgar Wright made a movie just for me?
Right. Is that what happened?
And so I don't know. I'm interested in to see what of our, but I think Blade Runner is a movie that the reason we can look back and call it a classic is we're saying that 30 to 35 years later.
Agreed. That's right. It has stood the test of time.
So I guess what I'm saying, Adam, is we'll get back to you in 30 years. We'll reapproach this question 30 years from now on our 30th anniversary episode and say, what of our, but I am very interested in what from today will become a cult classic.
Me too.
Or what will transcend cult classic and be considered
just a classic
film.
Yes.
In the AFI Top 100 30 years from now, will The Big Lebowski be on there as an example of a great comedy?
Yeah.
For instance, just based on its persistence, I think Princess Bride belongs in that.
Me too.
Princess Bride is an example of a movie that, I mean, I guess that would be one of the best examples of a movie that has gotten to the point for our generation where it is absolute canon. If you are in our generation, if you are in your late 20s, early 30s, even 30s and early 40s, Princess Bride is on the short list for you.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yes.
It has to be reckoned with.
Yes.
And it was not a big deal when it came out.
No.
But I would be shocked. I would be really surprised if 20, 30 years from now, when they look at top 10 lists of romances or comedies, if that movie doesn't start making appearances.
Well said.
That's all. I'm done.
Okay. And that'll bring us to the end of Adam. Thank you. Awesome question. And again, as Phil said, welcome to Second Breakfast Nation.
I hope you start watching back episodes. Catch up. If you liked Project Melway for Braveheart, which is the one I know you watched, there's like 35 more of them. So
he also apparently watched at least part of the Mrs. Sofel episode, which, Adam, we're sorry. I mean, it's a good episode, but like,
I mean, I'm never sorry for someone watching a Mel Gibson a Project Melway episode.
Sure.
But I'd say watch them and decide, am I going to watch The River? The answer is no.
The answer is no.
Am I going to watch Tim? Please don't.
Please don't. Unless you want to be strangely attracted to Piper Laurie, which you might.
You might want to.
And that's your deal. I'm not judging, but it took me by surprise.
3 words for you. Attack Force Z.
Alrighty. That brings us to the end of this viewer mailbag and the end of another week of Second Breakfast Podcast. And this will be the last time we see you for a while. We are going on hiatus. We're taking a
vacation.
Vacation.
I want to say vacation because hiatus is what shows go on before they get canceled.
That's fair.
No one can cancel us. We don't get paid by anyone. We do this for fun.
That's right.
We're taking a little 3-week vacay.
Mm-hmm.
From the show. We need to recharge our batteries and sort of think about the way forward, which there will be. We're doing some retooling and we've got some really good ideas. Big things. Big things are afoot at the Circle K.
Indeed. Yes, Circle K. This podcast is sponsored by Circle K. Also, I'm glad you said that, just because we're ending on a movie that our director, Keith Picaro, hello Keith, doesn't like as much as he should.
What?
I know. I know.
He doesn't like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
He also hasn't seen the second one. I can't even.
Whatever we pay him, which is nothing, we should pay him less. He should pay us.
I agree.
I agree. Flames.
Keith, you're welcome. Fired. But fear not. We have the three of us, Phil, Keith, and I have put together lists of our favorites, of our catalog of back episodes, and we're going to post them on Facebook. And so we'll still be around, and of course you can always just go to our old episodes.
Right. Now's a good time to catch up.
So we're on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, email us if you'd like. We are still accepting questions for mailbags and just well wishes through email at secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. We will not see you next week, but we will see you very soon. I'm Andy Roth, and that's Phil Duvall. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.